get serious and know that the decisions you make in your 20s actually have consequences for the next few decades of your life. Welcome back to Gen Z Unplugged. We're thrilled to have you guys with us. We really hope you enjoyed last week's episode. And today we have something different. Catherine and I are here to just chat with you guys about your 20s and kind of address this cultural phenomenon of people believing that your 20s are this time to mess around, to not make any commitments. Yet people also have goals for themselves later in life. So Catherine, kind of based on your experience with your peers or what you hear in the media, what do you think is the dominant belief about what you're supposed to do in your 20s?
Yeah, in our 20s, we're told to participate in this hookup culture. Mm-hmm. We're told to make mistakes. We're told to think of it as a time which doesn't matter to the rest of our life, that we have time to make these mistakes and go do whatever we want. And that by the time we're 30, we'll have time to go back on those mistakes, fix them, and then start our life when we turn 30, when actually in our 20s, that is a time, is a launch pad to our 30s. It is a time where we can prepare and promote ourselves to who we want to be, to set us up to be the best version of ourselves when our 30s roll around, when the rest of your life is on a certain trajectory.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And there's a really interesting book that I read. It's by Dr. Meg Jay, who's a professor at UVA who studies psychology of adolescents and young adults. And she wrote this book called The Defining Decade. And what it talks about is how your 20s are actually a crucial time, not a throwaway decade where you can just mess around and do whatever you want, but a crucial time to set yourself up for this life of meaning and purpose. And I highly recommend the book. Please read this book. It goes through all these interviews that she's done with young adults. And it'll be people who will come in to her therapy sessions because she's a counselor as well as a professor at UVA, and they'll say, well, when I'm 30, that's when I'll get serious. When I'm 30, I see myself with a husband and 2 kids. When I'm 30, I see myself with this specific career. Yet she explains that in these interviews, people admit that they aren't making any real progress, that they haven't been really dating seriously, not actively trying to find a spouse, but kind of engaging, like you said, with hookup culture and with casual dating, which is super, super common in our among Gen Z. And then they also will pursue jobs that are completely unrelated to the job that they want to end up in. So there's a total disconnect. So people have these goals for themselves when they're 30, 40, 50 years old, yet you don't see an ounce of effort to make progress towards those goals. And one caveat I will add here is that we're in our early 20s. I'm 25, you're 23. And it's a special time to do a little bit of trial and error. And especially in college when, you're not necessarily tied down to a career. You have the opportunity to explore different majors, to explore clubs, to make different friends. But you do have to be intentional with that time. You can't just continue doing something is wrong. So you can do a little bit of that trial and error, but eventually you do have to get serious and know that the decisions you make in your 20s actually have consequences for the next few decades of your life.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think with using your 20s as an opportunity to try so many different things, because that is so important, that is so good. Why you have this time, this precious time, try everything you're interested in, because once you hit your 30s, you want to have a kind of trajectory of what you want your life to look like. So work up to that point. So figure out what interests you and what you value so that by the time you're 30 and how you want your life to look like then, you've already done those hard steps to figure out how to get to that point where you want to kind of end up.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that in thinking about this, I've kind of boiled it down to some major important decisions that in my experience were really relevant. And just the work we've done with young women at the Luce Center, we see how much these particular decisions have an impact on them way later in life as well. So we'd love to just share those with you all and just go through these 4 important decisions that I think will come up in college or in your mid-20s and in your late 20s. So, Catherine, you want to share number 1?
Yeah. So number 1, we think as most important decision that you will make in your 20s is who you worship and what you value. Those two kind of go in tandem together, as what you value, who you are, what are your morals, what are your virtues, what are you going to stand firm in? Because once you understand that, you have a lot of people who grow up in great, families and cultures, and, they have these values and these virtues that they instill in their children. But once you're in your 20s and you go to college, that's the first time you're really away from your family. You got to make that your own. It's really important because you're going to have to be able to stand up to different ideologies and different ideals that you don't believe are true and good, and understand why you don't believe that, so you don't get kind of sucked into that culture.
Yeah, because I think college, as we know, so many state schools have become just leftist indoctrination factories. So if you can go into college, at that point you're 18 or 19 years old with an understanding that they're probably going to try to thwart what you've been taught. And I know that a lot of our listeners have probably been raised in really faithful Christian families or conservative families. But I mean, it's no surprise that students will go into college with those beliefs and then come out of college completely different. Yeah. Like I can think of a lot of peers that I had who came in, and I remember talking to them about the 2020 election, and she was like, I don't know who I'm going to vote for. At that point it was Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and she was just open to the ideas. And then within 2 years, she had completely changed her tune, and she was just a staunch abortion advocate and had taken root with all of these leftist values. And that's what happens to so many young women who go into school. So being aware of that can happen, and being aware that your values really do matter. And I think that actually making your values your own, like you said, it's the first time you're away from your family, making those values your own and actually figuring out what you personally believe before you're faced with all that pressure is super important. Yeah.
And the second one that kind of goes in tandem, with that first one is who you worship. Understanding what it is that will fuel you and the rest of your life. And for religious people, obviously it's God and you worship him. But for non-religious, that could be,
it could be anything else.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think you can make anything an object of worship. And people will often say, oh, there's, tons of religious, non-religious, atheist, agnostic. But it is my strong opinion that there's no such thing as a non-religious person, because everyone is going to be worshiping someone or something. And, we want to worship God, but in reality, like, you have to look at your actions and look at what you're saying and doing to see, what am I actually serving? And I think for people who don't claim any faith or religion, that often ends up being our cultural idols. So you think about abortion, that's put on this pedestal. It's literally praised by people and counted as this highest good. Like the left has set up these idols for you to aim your heart at, to aim your worship at. And I know like transgenderism is something that rules. DEI is something that rules. And everything else has to bow to those idols, because those are kind of these ultimate forms of worship when God is taken out.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And with like the DEI initiative, thinking of it like as something that people worship is such an interesting point. Can you kind of go deeper into that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that what happens with DEI when that's implemented, take our military, for example. When DEI policies were implemented in our military system, our national safety and our national security were literally put on the sidelines so that someone who was not necessarily qualified for a job could be in that job. And you just see safety is sacrificed and human lives are sacrificed when DEI policies are in place. And then, like I said, abortion is kind of the perfect example where, bodily autonomy and the love of the self and the worship of the self quite literally results in the murder of another human being.
Yeah.
So that is how this false worship really plays itself out in reality when people don't have the right object of our worship, which is God.
So now we're actually going to move on to our second point, which is so important. We both love this topic. It is In your 20s, deciding who you will marry is one of the most important decisions you will make.
Yeah, it's so crucial. And I also, little caveat here, I don't want to say that you will meet the person you're going to marry in your 20s or that it's a requirement. I know we've talked about this a little bit, but the phenomenon of young people who go to really, really great Christian schools and the culture there is like, we need to get married yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much pressure. So I don't want to put that pressure on people, but I also think being married young is awesome.
Yeah.
I got married at 24. Catherine's engaged and getting married soon. So we're big fans of that, but it's not a requirement. It's not mandatory. And you might not meet a spouse until later. But kind of to the point we're making broadly, it is important to actually be intentional about that and date for a reason. And when you know that something is right and when you're sure that this isn't the guy, this isn't the girl for you, to move on. And to kind of always be discerning and always be wise about dating. Yeah.
And I think like with, you know, finding your person, deciding who you are going to marry, that's going to really impact you for the rest of your life, either for the best or for the worst. And finding someone who supports you, who you respect. I mean, as a woman, my fiance, like I respect him, I admire him. So finding those qualities in a man, to be able to, you know, fully trust him, because you guys are going to go through highs and lows, like through different jobs that you're going to have, or how you navigate, you know, married life and having children and all the different spheres of what life will bring you. Having someone who will support you and have your back and be a firm foundation, a spiritual leader who will get you through those tough times is super important.
Yeah, it is. I can't even begin to explain how important it is. And I've already seen that. I'm actually coming up on 1 year of marriage, so we're excited.
That's exciting.
So, and it's been amazing. And I've seen all of the important conversations that we had early on in dating are now paying off. Yeah. Because like, I'm so glad that we talked about, you know, what does family life look like? What does our, community at church look like? To be aligned on those things, you know, in the first few months of marriage, to figure that out, it so pays off later.
Yeah. So putting that time in now when you're dating someone to really find out, you know, if he's the one. Yeah. And then the third most important thing that we think, like a decision you'll have to make is your friends. Like, making the decision of who will be in your circle, because we've all heard that whoever you surround yourself with, the 5 closest people to you, is how you are going to kind of look like when you grow up. And that's going to be a big trajectory of what you are going to believe, what you're going to think, how you act, how you treat people is like those people that you closely, you know, surround yourself with.
Yeah, they say you're like the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Yeah. And we're such naturally mimetic creatures. Like, we want to mimic things that other people do. And it's going to happen if you're aware of it or not. And I remember just kind of friend groups throughout the years, I would start picking up their vocabulary. Like,
yeah,
like I
happened me too.
Every friend group has like their own dictionary of things that they say. And obviously you're going to spend time with those people. And even if you have a really strong personality or you have a lot of conviction over your values, the power of the group is so crazy. Yeah. So even if you do have strong values, you have to surround yourself with people who just, you know, care about you, want to hold you accountable. And Catherine, I know that you like are always wanting to be really wise and discerning about who you're friends with. So I'd love to hear your experience with, you know, choosing good friends and choosing friends that are going to make you better.
Yeah, so I've actually had my fair share of different environments where I've had different groups of friends, ones that, you know, didn't put my best interests at heart, didn't hold me up to, you know, be the best version of who I could be, didn't support me in the things that were important. And I did experience where I felt like I was kind of changing my morals and my values, which I told myself, you know, I'm not going to budge on these, you know, certain things. Well, when you're surrounded by a group of people who completely disagree with you, they'll make you feel in a certain way that you're weird, you're an outcast, you're not normal because you do hold these certain beliefs that you hold as, you know, very vital, like we talked about in the first, you know, of the 4 important things. And you will feel like an outcast. But when you do, I had to come to a realization, like, I'm feeling it for a good reason, because I'm not conforming to what the world is telling me to do. I'm not conforming to what is easy. I'm not conforming to what's most popular. I'm holding on to what I value as truth and, important, because that's important to me. And that is going to help me the rest of my life. So it's really important to, not have to go through that. I mean, sometimes it could be so you can experience it and understand it and learn from it, and in a way that made me stronger in my beliefs. But it's really difficult. You will feel like you're ostracized from your peers, but it will make you stronger. And just remember to hold on to those values that you made for yourself. But it's so important to find those good friends. And I was very blessed to be able to find these wonderful friends after I went through so many different other circles. And they were a breath of fresh air for me. They, upheld me. We, upheld each other, really. And we all had the same morals, the same virtues. We got to, praise and love God together and grow my faith. They went to mass with me, and it became my community. And instead of taking from me life with other groups where I just felt like I didn't have anything to stand on, I was losing who I was, what is going on, like a whirlwind. It's like I was brand new. I was fresh. I was happy. I was joyful. And it was just a wonderful environment when you put yourself around people who are like-minded, who are similar. Some of it was religious and conservative values and all these different aspects. There's people out there like you. So it's just so important to find them and stick with them, because they will go through life's ups and downs with you. And I know you have, a similar experience with that. You had, a lot of friends that you met that you thought were your friends, but then you realized, those people aren't actually good for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. And I think you go through phases of that. But ultimately, yeah, I think I talked about this a little in a previous episode about how I joined a Bible study and I thought all the girls in there were prudes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're way too serious about what the Bible says, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then once, God really used that community to convict me. And then they became my best friends. And then I was one of the prudes,
I love that.
So yeah, that was a super huge blessing. And yeah, I just became more and more like them, which was amazing.
Yeah.
So, hang out with people you admire and people you want to become more like. And kind of just draw back what we're doing here at the Luce Center is camaraderie is unbelievably important. And that's something that we really prioritize in our programs. And I think, it's the common thought is that support and camaraderie is kind of this side benefit of clubs you join or institutes or organizations that you're a part of. But in reality, it's an intentional part of what we do at the Luce Center, that we want to help young women feel that sense of community, because like you just said, it can genuinely change your life, and it can change your trajectory so that you are holding fast to your values. So yeah, that's just something I love about what we do here. And, we just spent the summer with 10 interns. Yeah. And something that our interns say every year is that I'm so grateful for the friendships that I made here. Yeah. And that's just, nothing beats that. Yeah. And nothing is as powerful and as strong as knowing that there's people who are like you, who share your values, and who are going to support you when things look really dark.
Yeah, I was actually first exposed to the Luce Center at the Nashville Summit my senior year. And at that summit, I met so many young women who were just like me. And that was huge. That was a breath of fresh air for me. I was shocked. I remember calling my mom that first night. I was like, Mom, there's girls like me, and there was over 100 of them in a room. I was so blessed, so thankful. And actually 3 of my really close friends still today, I met at the summit, and we are still in contact. So it's really special to be able to, have that opportunity where, we at the Luce Center, we put all these young women together. We host events where young women are able to meet other like-minded girls to strengthen their beliefs. And, we had a podcast with Stella Morabito about her weaponization of loneliness and how people are ostracized and how important that is for mental health, for physical health, for, every aspect of your life, to surround yourself with like-minded people to support you.
Yeah, I just can't overemphasize how important it is. And kind of going into our final decision that we're going to talk about, which has a lot of nuance. We'll get into that, but decide what to do for your career. And that sounds super daunting, especially when you're in college and, you know, you're 17, 18, 19 years old and you have no clue what you want to do.
Yeah.
You have no clue what to major in. That's okay.
I had 3 different majors before the one I graduated with.
Yeah. So, okay. What were all your majors?
Okay. So I started out in accounting. I thought I was going to be a CPA and quickly realized... I thought so too. So my first semester, I quickly realized that is not what I wanted to do because you have to sit at a desk all day and crunch in numbers to an Excel sheet. And I was like, God bless the people who do that because I could not. I had to talk to people. I had to, you know, connect with people. So then I switched over to business administration because I was an athlete and all other athletes were doing that around me. Yeah. So I was like,
there you go. The friends
around you. Exactly. I was like, I'll just do your major. So I started in business administration and I just really felt like the stuff I was learning, I could kind of figure out myself. And I understood I liked some parts of it, but it wasn't challenging my mind where like how much I wanted it to. I wanted to understand the reason behind things. I was really just striving for a more like grounded understanding of everything. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. So I then declared as undecided because I was so confused. I started going to, you know, just different classes of different majors just to get all my electives out of the way. And I thought I was going to do, you know, an English major because I love to write. And I found my way over into a great books, you know, major, which is a lot of philosophy and, you know, theology, you know, understanding the reason behind why everything is the way it is. Yeah. And I really enjoyed it. So I then majored in a degree called PPE, which stands for Politics, Philosophy, and Economics. Fell in love with it. It was my perfect match. I got the philosophy, I got the, you know, politics of like American truths and principles, you know, what our, you know, amazing country was founded upon. And I got to, you know, with my math background in, you know, accounting, got to use that for economics. So it really was a full circle. It was a perfect degree for me. It just meshed. And I didn't find that until, I believe the beginning of my junior year, the end of my sophomore year, one of the two. And just so grateful I did because after I did that, you know, everything else in my life, all the doors and windows opened, just followed that path. And it just, I couldn't imagine, you know, not, you know, doing the major and the job that I do now.
Yeah. And that's what I think puts young people at ease is hearing stories like that where you weren't sure. And it's okay to not be sure because, you know, thankfully our college system allows for a lot of that trial and error.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about. And yeah, I had a similar experience that the only thing I knew about myself was that I wanted to speak fluent Spanish.
What?
Yeah, that's what I went into college knowing. I was like, I'm going to be fluent in Spanish. Yeah. So I looked at the list of majors and I saw international relations and I was like, that sounds good.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So I started school as an international relations major and then oh my gosh, I did not like my classes at all. So I remember thinking, what the heck am I doing in this major? So then I kind of switched routes and I had loved talking to my friends about their, you know, issues or whatever they had going on. So I thought, okay, maybe I can be a therapist. Yeah. So I switched into a human development program. And I'm kind of pursuing that. And as I'm going through all those classes, it's getting increasingly woke and increasingly radical. And I thought, will I be able to do this and hang on to my convictions? Maybe not. Wow. So, you know, I got to my senior year and I was approaching this degree in human development and I still had no clue what I wanted to do. I was looking into grad programs a little bit, but mostly I just thought, well, I have no clue. And, you know, it gets to be March, it gets to be April, graduation rolls around and, you know, I'm shaking because I don't have a job. I don't have a job that like, oh, my friends are getting offers from their internships last summer. And I was nervous about it. So I ended up going home and I just substituted as a substitute teacher at public schools. Okay. Which is a whole nother
We need to hear stories about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you stories later. But yeah, I did that for a couple months, and then I found a job at the Luce Center because I realized that the conservative movement was doing a whole lot more to help people to fix their problems and help people thrive than the therapy world was.
Yeah.
And, I was listening to people like Allie Beth Stuckey and Daily Wire who were actually helping women to choose life. They were helping to fight transgenderism.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing things that are actually good for people. And that was not what I saw in the therapy world. So what kind of the point of all that is, I love to tell young people that the career you end up having might not be the career that you envision for yourself, but you have to identify what is the reason that you want that career. So I kind of, I analyzed my situation. I said, okay, why do I want to become a therapist? Well, I want to become a therapist because I want to help people thrive and flourish. And like I said, I realized that the conservative movement was really doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I get to help young women through our internship programs and through hosting campus speakers and just empowering them to live lives that will not only, make them strong leaders, but will make them happy and healthy.
Yeah.
And so I actually get to do the thing that I wanted to do. It just doesn't look the way that I do. So I always encourage people who are looking for jobs to be open to roles that might not fit, their perfect idea of what their dream job looks like, but it still answers that desire that they have.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good point to, make because also like in the job that you end up in and, are working towards, you want to make sure that your values align with it. Mm-hmm. Like how you were saying with therapy and not going that route. I mean, you didn't want to go that route because you were going to have to give up what you truly believed in certain values that you had. So making sure that you're not putting a job over your well-being and your convictions, I think is also really important.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think some people do go into those fields and become real fighters for what is good. And we need people like that too. But it's just about, like you said, staying firm in those convictions and in your values. And I always encourage people to not view kind of those in-between jobs as a distraction or a setback from what you really want to do. But, like I view my time substituting as just a way to build up my experience and build up my skill. Because there's plenty of tools that I learned there that I use now too.
Yeah.
So just because you have a job that isn't, directly on the path to where you want to end up, it's probably still going to be helpful as long as you're being intentional about gaining experience and gaining skills that will serve the job that you really want.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. So to kind of wrap up, those are our 4 major decisions that you might make when you're in your 20s. You probably will. And they really have the potential to set you up for a meaningful life. So your 20s can't just be a throwaway decade.
Yeah. And we'd love to hear from some of you guys what you think was the most important decision you made in your 20s. Or if you are not 20 yet, what decision are you most looking forward to making when you turn 20 and you go to college? But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. Please follow us on all of our social medias. We're Real Gen Z Unplugged. Please subscribe, put on notifications, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye, guys.